in his district, everything is calm and normal. And joining us now, 2nd District Republican Congressman from the Virginia Beach area, Scott Rigell. Congressman, great to have you with us.
Well, good morning. Morning, John. You shared with the audience and me as well great wisdom with respect to Mother's Day. Of course, that's all true. Had a wonderful time with Terry. We watched our 2 grandchildren all day, about wore us out, but it was good. And I almost started out our conversation this morning with a strong laugh when you said that all is well in the 2nd District. I'll put it this way. It's interesting, the spirit of contested leadership and all of that is very much alive in Virginia's 2nd Congressional District, but we'll get through it.
Well, look, I was commenting on it earlier, and I don't want to get you sucked in or embroiled in the whole thing, but the chairman changes every day. So I guess the good news is both Curtis Colgate and State Senator Frank Wagner now can say that they have experience at being the chairman of the 2nd District, because every day it changes. I don't know who's in charge. Now we understand that Frank Wagner's the chairman, but it's ultimately going to get decided, I think, at by the Republican Party of Virginia Steering Committee on June the 6th, I believe, at the Roanoke Convention. By the way, we'll be in Roanoke. We'll be broadcasting it live, and we'll be on the air starting at 10 a.m. We look forward to a long day. Now, Congressman, I was excited about getting you on today. I was reading the Virginia Pilot, on Sunday, and saw that you had an op-ed in there, which I thought was extremely well written. And you were sharing your concerns with the constitutional overreach of this president and how it's setting a dangerous precedent regardless of which party controls the Oval Office. Can you share that with our audience, sir?
Well, I appreciate the opportunity, appreciate the kind word about the editorial. John, I think this is kind of an underlying shift that is taking place in our country over time, and it's occurred as a result of poor decisions, I think largely unintentional on the part of presidents, not only Obama but also Bush, but the net effect of it over time is a serious breach of the separation of powers among the 3 branches, executive, judicial, legislative, and typically we start out with legislative because that is really the will of the people expressed through their representatives. And not only has this President Obama done this, but his predecessors as well to some degree, but it has accelerated and really reached, as Professor Jonathan Turley said, who is actually an Obama supporter. He said in testimony before the Judiciary Committee, he said that he believes that we've reached a constitutional tipping point. This is sobering that President Obama is not staying in what I refer to as his constitutional lane. And so I walked the readers through that, and also what the House of Representatives is doing, and I'm glad it was well received.
No, it was fabulous work, and we appreciate you doing that because, people get caught up in the moment, and one of the things that, Congressman, you pointed out in your op-ed is that this president has made no secret. I mean, he basically said, look, if I can't get things done legislatively, then I'm going to do what I have to do. End the debate.
He was an outright in the last State of the Union speech. He said, whenever I can. Let's see. Here it is. So whenever and wherever and whenever I can take steps without legislation to expand opportunity for more American families, that's what I'm going to do. Well, what he didn't say and what he should have said and what would have been good for our country, and I think would have reflected much better on him personally in his presidency, was he would have expressly committed to adherence to the Constitution at that point, but he didn't do that. So he implies, if not outright states, look, I'll do an end around, I'll get the job done. And I think what happens, John, is that, every day presidents have got these people around them who were saying, Mr. President, your legacy, Mr. President, your legacy, your legacy. So they're worried about getting stuff done, and instead of doing the heavy lift, which is under our system of governance, going back to the legislature, coming over and talking to representatives and senators and engaging Congress, it is very difficult to do. Admittedly, it's designed to be difficult, but he's not doing that. In fact, members of his own party have told me that, Scott, he's not engaging us. He's not talking to us. He seems affable and congenial and all of this, but, like he'd be fairly easy to talk to, but he's not. Even his own party members are not getting to him, so he's not engaging Congress. And that would lead to a principled compromise, not a compromise in principle, but he's not doing that. And he's choosing instead to do the end run through executive appointments and either not enforcing current law or kind of creating it as he goes along.
Long-term ramifications of his actions, Congressman, what are they?
Well, first what's happened is it's the drip, drip, drip of precedent, which is really dangerous to our country because when things happen slowly over time, sometimes you don't really quite realize the depth, how much movement has taken place. And so it is his lane, the executive lane has become much wider. And so when the executive branch starts to get the legislative and in effect somewhat the judiciary part, our whole system of governance is weakened. That's why the House passed two significant pieces of legislation that would increase the accountability on this and increase the visibility on this. And we're doing everything we can. In fact, we need to do more. And to be blunt about it, I'm looking for and have been the appropriate lawsuits to engage in and participate in. We're still swinging our radar for that. Frankly, John, it's a lot harder than I thought it'd be. But the idea of stopping it now, and it is not partisan. It is not about not wanting President Obama to be successful or something, or these odd claims and bizarre claims that are made by some. It has nothing to do with D's and R's. It has everything to do, as this professor said, who is Professor Turley, who outright supports the president's objectives, but he said, look, it's the method that we're opposing, that he opposes, and so troubles him. So it's time to stop it now, and I hope all of our listeners kind of get involved in this and go to rigell.house.gov. We're going to put out another Rigell report this week that has additional information on it so they can help us with this.
Common Sense News Time, 7:49. This is the John Fredericks Radio Network, Washington, D.C., Southern Maryland, and across Virginia. We're with 2nd District of Virginia Republican Congressman Scott Rigell. Congressman, I want to move, if I can, for a second to a couple of things on the domestic front. Number one, the Select Committee on Benghazi, your colleague in charge of that. I know you're a good friend of his, Trey Gowdy. The Democrats and the minority leaders still haven't decided if they're even going to put 5 Democrats on the committee. What's the deal with this?
Well, John, it is true that partisanship grips Washington. The concern for some, is there a political aspect? I mean, I think that can be legitimately debated for just a few minutes. But that said, that quickly dissipates and is subjected to the absolute truth that we don't know with absolute clarity who made certain decisions that I truly believe resulted in the deaths of 4 Americans. Now, it does need to be examined. It is not a partisan witch hunt. But I've seen reports, in fact, they're in the public domain, so this is not anything classified, but I can tell you that they were expressly concerned, and we did not have American troops there protecting Americans at that consulate. Instead, we were relying upon some local factions of militia whose loyalty, even at the time, we could not ascertain with any degree of confidence. I mean, this is to me, this is malfeasance. This is something that there needs to be some accountability. In fact, I'm actually working on another editorial that just talks about the overall lack of accountability, whether it's Fast and Furious, just the range of things that have happened, the IRS scandal, you go on, and I just don't see that basic principle of leadership, John, which is that with great responsibility comes great levels of accountability. And the president is not holding his top people accountable, and this is hurting our country.
Well, he doesn't hold anybody accountable, Congressman. You look at the chairman of the Veterans Administration, people are dying, and he's still defending him. So, I mean, this thing goes on forever. 7:52. This is the John Fredericks Show. We're with 2nd District Republican Congressman of Virginia, Scott Rigell. Congressman, I want to move to the debt. You know, This went unreported in the mainstream media. I believe on Wednesday, Federal Reserve Chairman Janet Yellen, referencing the Congressional Budget Office, CBO's long-term budget projections, told the Joint Economic Committee of Congress that under current policies, the federal government's deficits will, quotation, rise to unsustainable levels, as if they aren't that now. And she projected a deficit of $27.1 trillion by the end of 2024, 1 decade from now. $27 trillion. How do we possibly stop this?
John, you got me fired up this morning. I mean, I was anyway, but we're going from one critical topic to the next. This one that we're talking about now is indeed the principal reason that I sought this office. And everyone, the advisors are saying, Scott, you need to talk about this. You need to talk about this. This doesn't poll all that well. I mean, they're good people with all good intentions, but I'm saying, I'm telling you this, I'm a businessman. And I can look at this projection, and you reap what you sow. You reap more than you sow, and you reap later than you sow. Leverage, if you're on the wrong side of leverage, where you're borrowing money, I've used it to grow a business. That's a good thing if you do it right. But if you're on the wrong side of leverage, and we are as a country, it gets more and more difficult to arrest the trend that you're on. So I have a great sense of urgency about this. I talk about it all the time. I've actually advanced, a plan that would responsibly, close that window. I'm proud of the work that we've done as Republicans. We have made progress in one area, John. I want the listeners to hear that. On discretionary spending, and this is one reason I felt pretty good about my service, because I know that we've made some progress as a Republican conference. Mm-hmm. We are literally spending less in discretionary spending now than we were in FY13. And in FY13, fiscal year 13, we spent less than we did in 12. You go all the way back, we're spending less right now in discretionary than we were in 2009. Now, let that soak in for a minute. We've actually not slowed down the rate of growth. No, none of that psychobabble. We have actually reduced it in literal terms. Now, what's left? What's causing that? Because we had a record $3 trillion of revenue last year. Record, and still had a $540 billion. It's our collective failure as a nation to responsibly reform Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security. And anybody who doesn't have the guts to tell you that doesn't deserve to be elevated to public office at the federal level. And they better have an answer to it, too. It's not just, Republicans want to hurt this program. No, we're trying to reform them because we want them to be around for our children and grandchildren. Good gracious. So that's the issue before us, John, is how do we as a nation, with divided politics like we have, and these two parties that are having a rough time getting together, how do we navigate this? I could go on about it, but I better stop for a moment and let you talk.
No, look, $27 trillion. I had Senator Tim Kaine on my show about a month ago, and I said, how much is too much? Obviously, 18 trillion isn't too much. At what number, Senator, do you start to stay up at night? And he finally gave me a number. He's like, we start hitting 20 trillion, and it becomes too high of a percentage of GDP, then it's very problematic. Well, we got a projection now at 27 trillion.
Oh, yeah. And here, John, I think this must be said. The whole point of being at the pinnacle of leadership at the federal level, which obviously, of course, is the presidency, is this. It's leadership. It's leadership. It's to say, here's a worthy vision, and here's how I propose that we get there. And we're going to bring all these groups together to make good decisions. John, do you know the one little thing, it's significant at the time, but change CPI. The one thing that the president had in his previous budget that would have addressed some of this long-term spending growth, change CPI, he took that out. He has nothing in his budget that addresses in any substantive way Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security. It is a complete failure of leadership. And quite frankly, I'm not sure if it's just a lack of understanding, a lack of political courage, or what. But if there was ever a time when President Obama had a window of opportunity to do something that I think would help restore the integrity of his presidency these last 3.5 years, it would be now. And it would be to put out a bold, wise, mathematically defensible plan, and really a moral imperative to responsibly control those three areas. And sadly, I don't see that happening. We need a Republican majority in the Senate, and we need to elect and elevate the right person on the Republican side. And that's not going to make everything perfect and all our problems go away, but that's our best shot at getting this thing turned around.
Congressman, I'm just about out of time, 7:58. One-word answer: should Republicans expand Medicaid in Virginia?
No.
That's it. We're out of time. We want to thank Congressman Scott Rigell for being with us. Congressman, if people want more information, where do they go?
Rigell.house.gov, Rigell.house.gov. Please go there. We've got more information coming out on executive overreach this week and other important, informative pieces coming out in the days ahead.
All right, sir. It's always an honor to have you on the John Fredericks Show. Congressman
Thank
Scott
you so much.
Rigell.